Morning, Sarah here. So, thoughts for the today. What's your thoughts on simulation theory? Are we all in a big simulation? Have you mastered the controls yet? I'm not sure I have. So it's a bit like beginner's mind, I guess, the Buddhist concept that when you have no expectations or no prior knowledge, that it's actually quite easy to tap into the simulation. And then once you start overthinking it, it becomes really hard to master the controls. So my thoughts along this lines are, you just have to just keep trying, I guess. The reason it came into my head was I just stopped down by the brook and was staring into the flow of water, and I suddenly got a vision. Take that as you will. But I could see under the water a kind of snake-like movement, and the idea of dragon came into my head, water dragon. And then it was gone. The minute I started labelling it, it disappeared. And that's what sparked this thought about us all being in a huge computer-generated simulation. That we are the architects of our lives, but the vast majority of us don't really know how to tap into that. And so that was kind of my thought today. How can we better learn to tap into the powers that we have to manifest the life that we want? And I'm sure there's lots of you out there who have had occasions where you've thought of an idea and then 5 minutes later something confirms that thought, or just confirms that you were actually that you were thinking about it, or you had a desire of some kind, but at the time you didn't think it was possible, so you let that thought go, let that desire go, and then maybe some years later that vision that you had that you thought was out of reach suddenly appears in your life. How does that happen? Like vision boards, we're told that you stick a lot of pictures of the things that you want in your life on a board, stick it up in your kitchen and look at it every day, or meditate on it every day, and those things manifest. Well, I've found that doesn't work so well. What does work, though, that if you make a vision board, you then pack it away in a box and forget about it. Working on that basis, that you make your vision board and then you put it away, and sometime later, maybe years, your desires on your vision board come to fruition. And actually I made a vision board it must have been 8 years or so ago. Group of us got together and did them. It was a bit of fun, really, more than anything else. And I put it away, and some 4 or 5 years after that, I found it. I was clearing out things to leave Gozo, and I came across it, and I thought, oh, do you know what? A lot of what is on that board has actually, I'm about to drop my phone, actually happened. And I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't thought about it again after I made it. So some things had happened in the way I thought they would, and other things happened or came to the same result, but in a completely different way than I initially envisaged. So that's half the thing. Anyway, getting back to this simulation theory, that we can manifest the lives that we want by playing the game properly. And the game is getting your vibration right, as I've said before in many other videos. So I play the lottery from time to time, not in a hopeful or serious way, but just occasionally. And sometimes, you know, and if an astrologer says, okay, you Librans, this week is you're going to have a windfall, buy a lottery ticket. I sometimes do, you know, just one. Anyway, last week I won 30 quid after an astrologer had said, oh, you Librans are going to get a big windfall, buy a lottery ticket. But I wasn't really thinking about winning or anything. I just thought, okay, well, you know, what's £2.50? Anyway, I won. Oops, I'm just coming back down into the village. Cars, Rafi, come on. Anyway, winning £30 is not going to keep me going for the rest of my life. But I had an email yesterday from the Premium Bonds National Savings and whatever it's called now, saying you have won. And to be fair, I do win fairly regularly, but that yesterday I thought, oh, maybe this is the big one. Maybe I'm the £1 million winner. So I thought, now what would I do with that money? And so I thought, well, I'd probably buy, I don't know, invest in property or land or something of the sort. So I went on to Rightmove and started looking at suitable properties in an area that I like, that had a bit of land that I could, you know, set up a bigger place for retreats or something like that. Anyway, I found a few places and I thought, yeah, okay, so what would £1 million buy me? It would buy me a nice house with maybe 13 acres of land, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I'm back in the shed now. Going to do some gardening this morning. So, where was I? The £30, no, the premium bond win that I'm expecting anytime soon. So I haven't bothered to go onto the website and actually have a look. I thought I'd wait for it to land in my bank account first, and in the meantime just prepare myself for receiving that money and thinking about what I'm going to do with it, but not actually hold on to it too carefully. And let's see what happens. I'll let you know. So yeah, this simulation theory that we are able to control our lives in a, you know, really manipulate how we actually move through our lives. So I'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on this. So, you know, drop me a message in the comments. But I think where I'm going with this is that we can, like I was talking about yesterday in the car, that we can move out of that doom and gloom timeline. So that's a game I don't want to play anymore. So I'm going to consciously move myself away from that and move myself into the life that I do want to live. And that would, you know, it would be incredibly helpful to win £1 million on the national, on the premium bonds, but also I can do it without winning any money. I just have to be quite focused in what I want and maneuver things around. Now I know that there's probably a lot of you out there saying, oh, you can't do anything if you haven't got any money, but you can. Money is just a means to an end. And I think we've been so brainwashed in this simulation that we can't function without money. that people really have that belief that it's not possible. But I think little by little, step by step, if you want to train your mind into thinking that it is down to us, and start with beginner's mind, start looking at, sorry, it's a bit of a mess in here because I'm having to move everything out of the house to be able to get some work done in the kitchen. That we can start, you know, with a beginner's mind to maybe dream a little bit bigger than we do normally. And from a shamanic point of view, it's kind of in a roundabout sort of a way I was going to get to, shamanic journeying, which is a process of going into a light trance to access other realms, to access a space that we can't see with our ordinary mind, with our ordinary eyes. And a lot of people, when they're starting to do this, say to me, oh, how do you know you're not making this stuff up? Well, you don't, frankly. You don't know whether you're making it up or not. But the point is that there comes a point where you lose that egoic mind that might be trying to manipulate your journey, and you go into a flow where images and sounds and smells and thoughts just come to you. And you know, you can believe that you're still making that up if you like, but the point is that it brings healing with it. So it kind of doesn't matter whether you believe you're making it up, if the end result is a healing or an understanding or a wisdom or a gift in some way. It doesn't really matter. So that, in relation to the simulation theory, is that we can just flick out of the doom and gloom. We can flick out of the oppressive world that perhaps we're living in. And you might not be. I mean, you know, it might be something much simpler that you're trying to achieve. But for a lot of us at the moment, you know, it's hard going. You know, there's lots of preppers out there saying, oh, make sure you've got all the things that you need in case there's an energy cutout and what have you. And I have basic stuff that would probably keep me going for a couple of weeks, but anything longer than that, and I think, well, is it going to be worth living anyway if there's such an apocalypse? But, you know, I could manage for a month, so. But that's not where I want to go. So I don't want to be caught up in that fear-mongering of filling up my shed with hundreds of bottles of water. I've got a filter so I can go down to the stream and collect water and then come back and filter it. So I don't want to go into that whole mindset of being in fear, because that way you're moving your simulation into a place of fear, and more fear will be, you know, will be compounded on the fear that you already have. So I'm just looking at it saying, okay, well, if I happen to drop off some ledge in my simulation game and I end up in some apocalyptic scenario, I can survive for a little while. But I'm not going to worry about that, because actually I'm on the upward motion up the mountain, and I don't need all that stuff. So are you following me? It's a bit woo. Follow my train of thought. So yeah, going back to shamanic journeying. So you take yourself out of your ordinary egoic mind and your ordinary thinking for a moment. And it usually is just a moment. It kind of, I find I get snapshots of images that are very, very detailed, that I can go back in my mind's eye and just relive that kind of, it's like a photo still you know, I get this snapshot of what it is that's going on. I can then bring that back, write it down, and what have you. Or you have people that can channel, for example. And again, they, you know, whether you believe in channeling or not, doesn't really matter. What they're doing is bringing in information that has come to them in some way to help others navigate whatever it is that they're going through. So I think we just have to be a little bit open-minded about where this might lead us and how this simulation theory works. I think, you know, sometimes I find it very easy to get my head around it. And other times I'm so stuck in my humanness that I think, oh, that's all madness. You know, how can we possibly manipulate everything? But that's just ego talking, trying to rationalize everything that, you know, we have been so indoctrinated with all the BS that's going on around the place that sometimes that mind, if you can't immediately tap into, say, a shamanic journey, or see something in the water, or don't notice trees talking to you, that if if you're a beginner and you're not witnessing that from the onset, you're very likely to think that it's not possible. So, you know, you're kept away from it. So I can't remember what the quote is about thinking that you can either go through life thinking that nothing is a miracle, or there's no such thing as miracles, or that everything is a miracle. And I kind of like to think that everything's a miracle and we can build our lives around those miracles that come to us. So enough rambling for one day. I need to get into the garden to manifest my food for the next few months. Oh God, yesterday we had 23 degrees or something here, and today it is 9 and about to start raining. So, yeah, have a good day, everyone. Ciao for now.